Welcome to Konoha Crush, a clandestine effort to exhaustively research and document events occurring in and around the village hidden in the leaves. I'm Ruby.
I'm Gwen. Hi.
Hi, hello, hi, welcome to the podcast. How's it been? It's been like 2 weeks since we recorded, right? Because just some shit was going on, but we're back at it again now. How's it been over those 2 weeks?
Oh my god. Okay. It's been good. A lot's happened in the Gwenosphere of consuming media.
Okay. Would you like to talk about it?
Okay, well there's two things. One of which I think you probably have some stuff to say about too. So I'm going to leave that for after, but the first one is the first 3 episodes of the new Ruby anime
Oh.
came out.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
And I watched that.
Okay. Are you a big Ruby head?
No, but I gotta watch it out of because
Were you at one point in the past a big Ruby head?
yeah. So this is why I gotta watch the new anime about it, because it is a 2D animation produced in Japan, or by a Japanese studio, and with written with the original voice cast in Japanese, right? They made it an anime.
Okay.
How
is that?
Weird. It's weird. It's really weird.
Okay. So I'm kind of on the outside of this, but I have this vague understanding of it as this thing where they're starting by just adapting the beginning of Ruby and then going off and doing their own thing partway through.
Right. Okay. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, right? Because the animation's pretty good. I think a lot of the fight scenes and stuff look really good. In a way that you would kind of have to do if you're adapting the first season of Ruby.
Because what else is there? Fucking John.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. It has a video game plot.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that it roughly follows the events of the first season.
Uh-huh.
But there is a new character, right? Who's a femboy witch.
All right.
And his whole thing is that there is there's a new anime original type of Grim that infects people's minds and feeds off of their bad emotions. So every once in a while, it's still the basic overarching plot so far of the first season of the show, but every once in a while you have a bit where oh no, John's collapsed because of this new monster. All of his friends go inside of his fucking dreamscape and solve some emotional stuff that he has going on to get rid of the monster. And then we just go back to regular Ruby happening.
Right. It seems a lot like it would be sort of the additional plot from if they made a Ruby gacha game that was was stapled on third addition to the main plot.
Yeah. Or an RPG.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it seems very of a keeping with that sort of thing. That's fascinating, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird so far. And I've only seen the first 3 episodes, right? Because that's all they've put out so far. And so if it diverges further here on out, I don't know. I probably won't find out. I'm not going to be keeping up with it.
Oh damn! You're not committed.
I mean, I might watch it through once it's done, but
I was sitting here hoping you'd be a Ruby correspondent, and you really let me down.
I might, so as to not let you down, I guess.
But you don't have to. I'm joking.
I'll watch some AMVs about it and see. I'll let you know if I find anything weird.
I'll go on Sakigaburu and search at Ruby.
But okay, but beyond that, the new AI the Somnium Files.
Oh, did you were you playing that, Gwen?
No, you were, and you streamed the whole thing to me over
right.
Discord.
That's right. How do you feel about that, Gwen?
Fucking video games.
Fucking video games. Goddamn.
Goddamn.
Right. So I think, at least like my intent with this discussion is I don't want to like spoil the game and like any particulars of the game. Right. Like that game just came out like less than a week ago when recording this. I think it's kind of bad form to just sort of like put all that out here in the like intro for an unrelated podcast. But I do think I'll probably be talking about some like broad structural stuff and my feelings about it. So like if you are the kind of person who would feel kind of like put off by that about a game you're hoping to go into blind to, then like I think it's probably worth like, you know, being a little cautious, being willing to skip ahead a little bit.
I will,
because I know I'm the kind of person who like some of the things I am planning to say I would be like annoyed about hearing even if they're not technically spoilers.
Yeah, I will dub in right here the timestamp for when this discussion is over.
That's so kind of you.
Yeah. Alright, so if you don't want to hear this, skip to 14 minutes, 10 seconds. And if you're still here, we're going to talk about it.
So by the excited declaration of fucking video games, I'm assuming you liked it.
Yeah, I liked it so much.
I like it quite a lot too. I don't know that I like it as much as the first game, but I did have a great time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's fair. I didn't like it as much as the first game. I didn't like the first game as much as I liked 999.
Yeah, which is a game you keep telling me to play, and that I haven't played.
Yeah, which is a game that I keep telling you to play. Or I guess the Nonary games, like, as a whole. I think there are, you know, better and worse examples of, like, the Nonary games. Virtue's Last Reward and Zero Time Dilemma, as well as 999. And just like, you know, it's still a fucking video game. Holy shit.
It's still a fucking video game. It's still pretty good. Like, I have way less experience with Kotaro Uchikoshi's work broadly. Like, I have just played the first AI, and I, like, finished that, like, I guess probably around, like, I don't know, like, 8 hours before the second one came out on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of in it. And I think it's interesting, like, comparing my feelings, because I feel like if I were to look at my biggest complaints about the first game, I think they're pretty handily resolved in the second one. Like, because my biggest complaints with the first game is that I think the culprit reveal and, like, the character of the culprit is just kind of nothing to me. And that's, like, vastly improved in the second one. And I think that, like, the first game kind of has this moment where, like, it really runs out of steam as it just, like, completely tanks the momentum by doing these very extensive, like, flashback-ridden explanations of, like, everything that happened to set up the mystery. And I also think that's, like, you know, it's not the best pace. And I think that this game is better about both of those things to, like, a significant degree. But I also think it's not quite as good about the things that I love about the first game. Like, it's not really capturing that same appeal to me in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, like, what one thing that I want to mention right off the bat is, like, it is a much more linear game.
Yeah, for sure. I like the structure of the first game is very much like you go off on all of these different branches, often focusing on like a specific character, and like you pick up different information on each of those branches. And this game sort of has that, but like it is mostly just like the main route that you play through, and then there's like a couple branch off points that have like 40-minute alternate endings. That is basically the full extent of like alternate routes in this game.
Yeah.
Which I think. You know, like in comparison to like the way that you have like the Mizuki route and the Irish route in the first game, like I think a lot of those characters that have their own endings in this game wind up feeling like a little more underdeveloped at times. I think a thing that the first game does really well to like characterize the characters is that like it does, because in each of the routes you have like a different character accompanying you, or like you're working with like different combinations of characters. It is like working with different combinations of characters throughout like a extensive stretch of the game. Like, it gives each of those characters, like, time to, like, interact with more people and, like, put them in different situations and really, like, you know, push them to, like... it brings a lot of good character work out of those characters because of that. And this game doesn't really have that in the same way. There's this sort of, like, insistence on, like, pairing characters off because it's got this whole thing about, like, you know... like, halves of things and, like, duos of things, right? Like, that's the whole... Yeah. And that is, like, the whole... Like, that is the whole through line throughout this game, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, like, and that, like, means that there are often characters who are just so constrained to those like pairings of characters that they don't really get the room to have any other like dynamics explored, even when the game is insisting that like those dynamics exist. Like there are two characters in this game that are like Iris's friends from the first game, right? Or like Iris from the first game's friends. Like only one of those characters was actually in the first game, and she was like very minor.
Yeah, I'm like she didn't even have a name. She was just Mermaid.
Yeah, and like both of those characters are like, you know, paired off with a different character throughout the game, and like so we basically never get any of their friendship with Iris to any like real extent. And there's just sort of a similar thing, like, you know, other relationships that those characters are suggested to have just kind of get left by the wayside for that sort of like continued thematic and aesthetic like emphasis on like, you know, there being two of something.
Yeah.
And they also another thing I think this game sort of like suffers from is that this is a game that is very confident in asserting that you can play this without playing the first one. And I think that is like technically true, but I don't necessarily know that like I would suggest it. And I also don't know that this game benefits from adhering to that so much. Like,
yeah, right, because it would like I wish it had the confidence to like acknowledge events and like characterization points from the previous game.
Yeah, that is a huge thing, right? Because it creates this tension because like it is a game that is both like very bound to like a lot of the structural flourishes and like the joke structures of the first game, right? Like there's just constant callbacks, there's constant like little gags that are building off of jokes from the first game. Like it is very much like it is a game that is very much full of nods to people who played the first one, but it is also a game where like, so you know one of the things that was like announced about this game before it came out was that Mizuki was going to be one of the two protagonists of it. Mizuki was like one of the major characters from the first game. She was my favorite character from the first game. And this game kind of struggles from the fact that like it doesn't really engage with any of her character work from the first game, and she has like a separate kind of character arc going on, but it's not really allowed to like build off of any of what she had going on in the first game in a way that's just kind of frustrating and leaves it feeling disjointed to me. Yeah, totally. And like, you know, Date, the protagonist of the first game, isn't really in this one a ton because, like, you know, it's not really his game. It's not really his story in that same way. But, like, he also suffers from this pretty bad where he is, like... He is very much the jokes about him in the first game and not a lot of, like, the actual, like, movement that character went through. And it is just a lot of characters that wind up feeling like they're in this weird point of stasis because they can't actually build off of the fact that this is a sequel to another game.
Yeah, no. Okay, so, like, I have something to say about it, too. And
all right, what do you have to say about it?
I think this is really important. If you're someone who played the first game, you know what this means. And if you don't worry about it. But, like, the song's worse.
The song is just worse.
The song's just worse. You know what? You know, like, I still think it's a great game. There's still, like, parts in the game that had me fucking hooting and hollering because of how cool a good video game it was. But
yeah, right? Like, it feels weird to be, like, coming in here and be like, here's my problems with it, because, like, fundamentally, I had, like, a great time. Like, I sat down and I played through all, like, however many hours that was, like, you know, with Gwen, and we had, like, the experience of playing it was a delight. There's a lot of, like, character beats in there that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of, like, fun payoff to, like, a lot of the mystery stuff. I think there's a core in that game that really works, even if it kind of gets in its own way sometimes. Right?
Yeah. But, you know, it's what it is. It's a sequel to a video game, and you know it didn't quite like stick the landing in the same way that the first one did, and like that's fine sometimes. Is that all we have to talk about? Do we have a Berserk update, or you just want to?
I've like read a bunch of Berserk, but like it's weird because like the last time I read Berserk was like before I sat down and played AI nonstop, and so like it's not like super in my head very prominently the way it often is when I do the Berserk update.
Okay.
Like I can give you like kind of a brief rundown without doing the whole thing. Like I'm kind of at the point where the comic is like reshaping what it is after the whole conviction arc. So you've got like the baby wizard hanging out with Guts. You've got like Farnese following him around. You've got like Griffith doing his big broad war shit. I think it's like really cool. I love how like it's able to like recenter a lot of the character work towards like a different direction. I love the change in tone. I love like how like much weird magic shit and stuff in the comic. I think it's just very cool. But also like again, it's not like as immediately in my mind as I would like it to be to like be talking about it right now. And also this opening section has gone on for like quite a bit long by our standards. So maybe we should get into Naruto.
Yeah, let's just get into Naruto. Okay. Episode 69. Nice. The Village in Distress. A new A-ranked mission.
Is nice part of the title?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't spreading misinformation on the podcast.
Kakashi tells Sakura that she and the boys need to go after Sasuke to stop him. He summons a cute puppy named Pakun to help them out. She releases the Genjutsu on Naruto and finds Shikamaru pretending to be under the Genjutsu. A sound ninja almost stabs Naruto, but Guy punches him through a wall. Kakashi explains the plan to the kids, and they take off while Shino's sitting around a corner and listening in. In the barrier, things pop off, and the Hokage and Orochimaru fight. The Hokage hits Orochimaru with mud and fire attacks, but Orochimaru's fine. Iruka and the other teachers have a meeting to figure out how to evacuate the students, and Orochimaru and the Hokage throw off their robes, so they can really throw down.
Right, so this episode starts off with Kakashi talking to Sakura about how she needs to go on a mission. There's like a really great bit, like right at the start of the scene that I like, where he's like talking to Sakura and he's just like fucking backhands the sound guy out of the air, like Sakura has to duck as he goes flying past, in like the middle of the conversation, which I think is pretty funny. And then from there, Kakashi's talking more to Sakura about this, and there's this moment where she's like, "Should we bring like Choji and Ino with? Like, they didn't get in a fight and use most of their chakra already, so like maybe they're like more rested and better to go for this." And Kakashi's like, "No, not thinking about anything for those guys doing this fucking arc. Leave them be."
Well, they're safer unconscious.
That could be true for a lot of people.
Like Naruto and Shikamaru?
Yeah. Just a real vote of no confidence in Ino and Choji. Brutal to them, but like, I guess they didn't make it to the finals of the Chunin exams, so.
Yeah, right, and like, Sakura wasn't so dang good at Genjutsu or whatever.
Yeah, which, it is going to be basically useless in like the actual mission that she's going on, but like, hey, it's enough to get her on the team.
Yeah, I mean, like, she's awake, it's not like...
It's like you're going to tell her to stay back.
Yeah, like, cat's out of the bag.
She goes to wake up Naruto and Shikamaru. Wakes up Naruto, realizes that Shikamaru is just fucking faking being asleep the whole time.
So good.
So good. Has to rely on Pakun to like bite Shikamaru in the leg to get him to actually stop fucking around. There's a really great bit where like you mentioned in your summary where somebody's about to stab Naruto and then Guy just punches him through a wall. But like I love the way it plays out because he just like slams the guy into the wall and everyone's like, "Whoa, Guy, you're so fast!" And he's like, "I'm not just fast. Check this shit out." And like shoves the guy through the rest of the way through a wall and sends him flying.
It's really good.
What a guy! What a great guy!
What a great guy!
Also, Pakun's just like he's kind of a delight. It's fucked up that Sakura doesn't think he's cute. First of all, he's objectively very cute.
Objectively very cute.
I love that he tries to bribe Shikamaru to going on the mission and be like, "Hey, you can touch my paw pads. They're really soft." Yeah, Pakun's a delight. But anyway, yeah, the kids run off. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get to like the Orochimaru and the Hokage part of this section of the episode?
No, not really.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the action with Orochimaru and the Hokage in this part of the episode is very much like we're kind of dragging this out. We're kind of stalling for time because like we've already burned through most of the chapter that isn't like bringing up the coffins and summoning the past Hokages. So like this part of the episode is just a lot of like padding out the action with some extra stuff. But I think there's some kind of interesting things in here anyway. I think that I noticed is that like a lot of the time in the anime when they're like making original techniques for like both the third Hokage and Orochimaru, they wind up going for like mud style stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think winds up drawing like a kind of interesting line between them, right? Where like, you do sort of get the sense that like, okay, Orochimaru was maybe following very directly in the third Hokage's footsteps for a while until like he decided to not do that. And there's like this real like it reinforces this real sense of like connection between all of them, right? Like I don't know, like it is interesting. It does kind of like reinforce the idea that I've kind of been forming where it's like it doesn't really seem like any of the third Hokage's kids that he trained are like talking to him all that much anymore.
Uh-huh.
And Orochimaru is the one who hates him the most, but also is also the one who like thinks seems to be thinking about him the most.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, it's interesting, and I think it's interesting to sort of like reinforce that connection by like kind of making them draw from a lot of the same like pool of jutsu in terms of like what in terms of what they use, right? Like it's I think it's like an interesting little point of like managing to bring some characterization out of what could be like a very dry, like, okay, they're fighting some more bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They are kind of like implying through like the techniques that they like know and like using that like Orochimaru is the one who like more directly took after the third Hokage's like technique.
Mm-hmm. Like, especially when you take into light the fact that, like, oh yeah, people call the third Hokage the professor because he can, like, use all of the hidden leaf jutsu, and, like, Orochimaru is the guy whose, like, motivation is, like, yeah, I want to learn all of the jutsu, so he's just kind of taking that to, like, a greater extreme,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, he kind of wants to be, like, the better version of his shitty dad to an extent that, like, has driven him to some places that, are maybe a little difficult to condone sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Another thing I like about this stretch of the fight is there's this bit where, the third Hokage gets Orochimaru like a mud landslide and it starts with like mud bullets and fire at him. And Orochimaru is like doing this big like, oh, you got me thing. And then like the third Hokage's like, hey, stop fucking around. And Orochimaru's like, okay, fine. Yeah, okay, fine. You didn't get me.
I fucking love this dude.
I love this dude. It's like one of my favorite Orochimaru lines in these episodes, like in this part too. Because like right after it, it's like the third Hokage is like, you're such a troublesome student. You're such a troublesome student, Orochimaru. And Orochimaru is basically like, actually, I think I'm being really cute right now.
And he is.
It's wonderful. He's having such a blast. I'm glad he's like really living it up right now.
Yeah, honestly, what's the point of fucking fighting your shitty dad if you can't have a good time?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Real quick, can I say something about the meeting with, like, Iruka and the other teachers?
Yeah, sure.
Can I, like, call out that fucking desk, the, like, table they're having the meeting with right now?
Do you have, like, an image of this? Because I don't have, like, a picture of it in my mind.
Okay, let me pull it up. Okay, so there it is. Let me know if you notice anything weird about that table.
Oh no!
There's just a huge square pillar right in the middle of it!
There's a huge square pillar right in the middle of it. Do you think this is set up so that, like, here's, like, the half of the people that, like, really matter to the meeting and everybody else is just kind of, like, sequestered away, like, having to look at the stone pillar while, like, the important guys are, like, fucking having the actual meeting?
Yeah, I don't know, because, like... Wait, what's really funny is that, like, they are kind of, like, clustered around the bottom half, too.
Yeah. Do you think there's a guy sitting behind the pillar that we just can't see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright. And that's the real least favorite.
Yeah. Why did they decide to have that be the meeting table?
I don't know. Okay, it seems like it would probably be better to just be standing around, frankly, at this point.
Like, literally, Iruka cannot see half of the people on screen right now.
Maybe the guy behind the pillar is actually, like, they don't hate him, but he's got the Byakugan, so, like, it doesn't matter that he's sitting behind the pillar.
Mm-hmm.
They really accounted for this in their seating plans. And I guess they all don't like to look at the Byakugan guy.
Alright, well, that's all I wanted to say. Is that table is, like, unhinged.
It's a little unhinged. My last thing for this half of the episode is we have a scene with Kabuto sending a bunch of sound goons after Naruto, and, like, they want to, like, remind us that he's the ninja info cards guy still. So he, like, pulls out, like he could just be like, yeah, he's the guy wearing orange. He's, like, the one guy who's wearing orange, and he's got, like, blonde hair, you can follow him. But he, like, makes sure to, like, take out the fucking specific card. He, like, activates with his chakra and, like, hands it off. And it's just, like, beeping the whole time as it, like, rotates around Naruto's face. Which is beautiful.
Yeah, look, you can't miss him. He's the one wearing orange. How the fuck did he expect to sneak? We're gonna track him down so easy.
I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying it's, like, a distinctive look. I also like there's a bit where he's like, yeah, okay, like, don't underestimate him. Like, I know his stats on this card don't look any good. I know they look very normal and unimpressive, but, like, don't underestimate him. It's very important. He's actually the main character of this comic, so you gotta be careful.
You gotta be very careful.
Okay, that's my piece for this half of the episode. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Orochimaru attempts to summon the 3 dead Hokage, but Hiruzen prevents Naruto's dad from being summoned. Konohamaru is starting to work out that the village is under attack while the kids are being put through a fake evacuation drill as to not incite panic. He notices a rainbow in the sky and remembers his grandpa telling him how they symbolize snakes and act as ill omens. The first and second Hokage step out of their little coffins and are kind of bummed out about having to fight. A bunch of sound ninja take off after Sakura and the boys.
So what I love, I mean, there's a lot of things I love about Orochimaru, like pulling up the coffins. There's the bit where he's just like, each time he pulls it up, he's like dramatically saying the number, right? Where he's like, first! And he like pulls one coffin up. The other thing, like, is like, this is ostensibly an action to block all of the shurikens that the third Hokage is throwing at him. Like, you could block these in any fucking way. But he just decides to do it in the fucking most extra way possible. It's like, hey, here's your fucking dad and your uncle.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The third Hokage just decides to like push the fourth Hokage back down here. He's like, yeah, that guy can't be on screen yet. That's for later.
Yeah, I can't fight that guy. I'm mega dead if that guy comes out. His son's a shonen protagonist. How the fuck does he do that, by the way? He just wants... I'm not sure. He just kind of wants it to go down, and so it does.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's like how... Maybe like when you're doing like time-space techniques, you can just kind of like interfere with the people's stuff and go, like, actually put that back. Anyway, we cut to like underground, where we've got like, you know, Konohamaru is like kind of starting to piece together like, oh, this is more than it seems. You know, this isn't just like a normal, or is it underground this time, or is it not underground yet?
It's underground this time.
Okay, and he remembered seeing like a rainbow or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So like I was like doing like a little bit of research into this. I didn't do like anything super extensively. But like I was trying to find where the basis for like this rainbow symbolized snakes are an ill omen thing came from.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the manga. Like none of the like evacuating the kids stuff is in the manga. Unless it's like pulling from like later chapters that I haven't like read alongside these episodes yet.
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't find like a cultural affiliation with that.
Okay. So is the third Hokage just homophobic?
Like that's kind of what I was thinking, right? Like not... I don't know if that's the intent. Maybe there really is like a cultural thing that like I missed because I did not do super deep digging. I was very much like it was like this morning. I was like, maybe I should look into this like a little bit more because like I made a joke in my notes about the third Hokage being homophobic, right? But like, you know, I figured I should do my due diligence, and I didn't really do my full due diligence. So like, if there's some basis for this, like, you know, and you know about it, like, please let me know.
Yeah, let us know right in.
But it is pretty funny to imagine the third Hokage be like, okay, I let a fucking gay kid do his shit in my village one time. It was so bad. I've never let that happen again. Fucking freak. Terrible.
Horrible.
Again, that's probably not the intent here, but it's also a connection that's kind of hard not to make, like sitting here watching this episode.
It's really fucking funny that the third Hokage is just homophobic, right? Like, okay, first of all, it's still Pride Month when we're recording this. It probably won't be by the time the episode goes up, but like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, fucking, we wonder why Orochimaru wants to fucking put this guy in the dirt. I want to put this guy in the dirt.
Everybody's gotta fucking hide their pride flags in the Hidden Leaf Village because, like, the third Hokage is going around telling everybody, like, those are actually evil snake flags. So you should be suspicious of those guys. It's terrible out here. Why do you think I left this fucking place?
God. And, like, the thing that makes it, like, so insidious is that he's telling this to a fucking child.
I wonder if people can tell how serious we're being. Like, I hope they know we're not being, like, super serious about this.
Yeah,
like...
no, it's jokes. Don't worry.
Okay. Anyway, we cut back to the rooftop where Orochimaru and the third Hokage are fighting. The first and second Hokage step out. You know, the third Hokage is like, oh, the great brothers here. It's interesting to me, like, how much they go out of the way to, like, just never name these two right here. Like, these are characters that have names, right? It's like, Hashirama and Tobirama Senju.
Mm-hmm.
But like nobody's like saying that here.
Well, probably they didn't have names yet.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have names yet. It seems like kind of silly to like be like, yeah, I'll name these guys later when they're like right on screen right there. But I guess nobody's really calling the third Hokage Hiruzen that much either, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's fine. In this part, there's like the first Hokage. He like steps on the coffin. And he's like, no matter what time it is, there's always a war. There's always a battle to be fighting. How miserable. And the Orochimaru is basically just like, you enjoy all the killing. Actually, here, have this knife in the back of your head that makes you evil. It's fucking amazing. Yeah, like, the episode ends with a fucking shot of like a sound goon standing on top of a roof, holding up the Naruto card, like staring at it intently to like make sure he doesn't forget what Naruto looks like. So you fucking know he's going after that guy next episode.
Oh, yeah. Him and his 8 friends.
Him and his 8 friends.
Okay. Ready for next one?
Yeah.
Episode 70. A Shirker's Call to Action. A Layabout No More. Paku notices the 9 ninja following them and has the kids go backwards over their footprints to help buy them some time. It doesn't work for long, and the gang works through a plan. Pakun and Shikamaru put them off setting up an ambush, saying there are probably some Jonin in the group chasing them, so even with an ambush, there's no way they'd win a fight with who they have. Shikamaru volunteers to set up a false ambush and stay behind to delay them as long as possible, even if it means he'll probably die.
So I think of our 3 episodes this week, this is kind of the slightest, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are just long stretches of this episode where there is just not like much happening other than the characters jumping through the trees and talking to each other. It feels like the first in a real like classic of the form of Naruto episodes that are just kind of drawing it out, of like guys hopping through trees episodes.
Yeah.
Like this is our first real one of those. Like it's fine, I get why you do it. It's it like generates some sort of visual interest in like what would otherwise be guys like standing around talking. You've got the kind of like it is a solid enough visual, even if I think it like it doesn't really like lend itself super well to like framing the actual like conversations in a very interesting way, but also like it means that there's movement on screen and like maybe that's enough. Like like a lot of this episode is like cutting between like okay here's like Naruto and Shikamaru and Sakura and Pakun jumping through the trees. Here's like Kankuro and Tamari and Gaara jumping through the trees. Here's like the 9 sound ninja chasing after them jumping through the trees. It's kind of a thin one in terms of actual meat on this bone here, I think.
Yeah, but I mean that's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes a comic is like a little bit talky for a little bit, and you gotta do something about it for the anime. That's fine.
Yeah, and you gotta like draw out those conversations a little while because like if we go too far, we're getting into like the big fight that's gonna be like really animated next time. So we just kind of have to pad it out and make sure we're not stepping on any toes for the production. And this is just the episode we gotta make.
Yep.
There's a bit in this first stretch of the episode where Naruto's sort of makeshift team is like they're trying to figure out ways to like throw the guys off of their trail, and like one of the things they come up with is like, okay, we're gonna like walk backwards over our steps to like cover up our tracks, which is like I guess in theory it could be something, except this episode is like codifying so heavily the fact that nobody's actually like running along the ground when they're going through a forest.
Yeah. So
it just seemed like the most obvious fake thing in the world. So obviously it gets discovered instantaneously and doesn't slow the guys down at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it slows them down about as long as it takes to like stand there and go, look, haha, they tried to walk backwards over their tracks. So I guess it's not nothing. But it probably took longer to walk backwards over your tracks.
I mean, the scene of them walking backwards over their tracks is definitely longer than the scene of the side guy's going to be like, hey, look at this obvious fake shit.
They realize that's not working, and so they move on to come up with another plan.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any good ones. They don't have any good options, really, because, like, Shikamaru just lays it out. This is like, okay, here's what happens if we ambush them. We have Naruto, Sakura, me, and a puppy. We die.
Yeah, right. Like it's very mean to Sakura. He's like, because he like specifically calls out Sakura as like a kunoichi who isn't like very good at anything, which is like, come on. She was good at things like 40 episodes ago, like a little bit at the end of like a couple episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's not her fault.
Yeah,
but it's definitely like, yeah, it's like, okay, they're probably like better trained than us. We don't have the actual terrain advantage because Orochimaru can just tell them what the terrain around the village is like. We don't have enough lead on them to like prepare a real ambush that can actually do much. It's just fucked in like basically every possible way.
Yeah, it's just fucked in every possible way, and so Shikamaru, being the fucking genius plans boy,
mm-hmm.
comes to the conclusion that the only way they're ever gonna make any ground on these guys is for somebody to like set up a fake ambush and just hold them off for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So Naruto does it.
I love that Naruto's like, okay, yeah, that's right. It's got to be me. I'm willing to die. Shikamaru's like, nah, man, you handle it. Like, I don't like, if I'm gonna fucking go, I don't want it to be like a big like fight. I don't really care about that. Like, I can die off screen to like 8 guys. It's okay. You handle this shit. I'm just fucking tired.
Yeah, literally holding people still is the one thing I can do.
Well, that's basically it for like this half of the episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to the rest of it.
Yeah. With the sound ninja seemingly still after them, Sakura worries Shikamaru just ran away, but Naruto says there's no way he'd do that. The sound ninja land to inspect some footprints, and all 8 of them get caught in shadow possession. But Shikamaru remembers the one extra, who he figures stayed behind to deal with this exact situation. He throws some knives at the sound ninja to provoke action from the 9th, and figure out his location. Shikamaru finds him, but his chakra is running too low now, and his shadow can't reach up to the trees where the 9th guy is hiding. Shikamaru resolves himself to hold them off for as long as possible and then die. Pakun notices their pursuers stop, and Sakura is sorry she doubted Shikamaru. Shikamaru drops the shadow possession, but instead of being killed by the 9th guy, Asuma drops down carrying an unconscious sound ninja, then kicks all the asses of the other sound ninja with his cool knuckle knives. The Sand siblings notice Sakura and Naruto are after them now too.
So like Naruto and Sakura and Pakun are still leaping through the trees. Sakura's starting to worry if Shikamaru has betrayed them or just like decided to fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
But like fortunately Naruto is here. He's gonna come through first row. He's like, no way would Shikamaru do that. I know that guy. I trust that guy. He has developed a very strong set of beliefs about Shikamaru by like hanging out with him off and on over the last 48 hours, which is beautiful. I love that he's that guy. He's like, yeah, no, okay. I've known this guy for like 2 days, and I've chosen fully to believe he wouldn't fuck us over like this.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You sometimes need somebody like that in your life.
Definitely.
You need somebody like that. You need like your second dad who like hides in trees and beats up a bunch of guys for you.
Yeah.
So Shikamaru, stuff's really coming together for Shikamaru right now.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, before that, Shikamaru is like facing off against the 8 guys. He does this thing where he's like, he's always like kind of gonna be a smug asshole about his trick. So he's like, hey, check out this fucking like clump of branches I used to make dog footprints, you idiots.
I love Shikamaru.
But like he knows that he's fucked basically. Like he knows he can't actually do anything to defeat them, right? Like he pulls out like 8 shuriken to be like, yeah, I guess I'll throw these at these guys, but they're just gonna get blocked and like maybe learn what the 9th guy is. It's not gonna do much for me. You know that, and like like he is correct. It doesn't do anything for him because like anybody can block a bunch of shurikens being thrown. And so he just sort of like starts monologuing in his head about like the way he wanted his life to go. And he talks about, he's like, yeah, I just wanted to live like a normal, unremarkable life. I was just gonna marry some woman. I was gonna have 2 kids, first a daughter, then a son, and I was gonna die of old age before my wife. Like, first of all, Shikamaru, I don't think you like women that much. Like, I don't know why you're planning on getting a wife. It doesn't seem like it would really work for you at this point in your life.
Okay, but also to be fair, the way he talked about getting a wife, he did not say a girl he likes. Just like, I'm just gonna find some like normal woman to be my wife.
I'm just gonna find any woman.
She doesn't have to look good. Just someone who will fucking have me.
And like, to Shikamaru's credit, he is kind of a misogynist.
Uh-huh.
But unlike his dad, he doesn't feel like open contempt about the idea of having a daughter.
Yeah, that's good.
So, baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
I've also like wondered, like, because he mentions like, yeah, I want to have a daughter first and then a son. Do you think like several years from now, when he has the son, he's like, ah, shit, tomorrow we fucked it up. Don't worry about the second kid. It's just not happening.
Look, I can't handle 2 sons. I'm not willing to take that risk. I didn't plan for this.
I'm like 300 moves ahead in the parenting game of our like 1 daughter and 1 son. Anything else, I'm fucked. I'm basically already completely redrawing our plans by having a son first. I cannot handle.
Just use shadow possession and all the male sperm.
Jesus fucking Christ. Speaking of shadow possession, at this point, the manga translation, like the Viz manga translation, has fully adapted their very weird stylistic choice of having the Japanese name and then the English name for like a jutsu said as one thing.
Okay.
So when like one of the sound guys is like, so this is the least famed shadow paralysis technique, Shikamaru's like, No, actually, now we call it the Kagemane Shadow Possession Technique. And it's like, no, Shikamaru, nobody calls it that. Nobody says it like that.
So, what's the deal with the old name for the technique?
I don't know. Did they just like evolve it so that you can like make the guy like mimic your moves at some point?
I don't know.
I didn't actually do like any like dive into like what the various data books say about this one.
Mm-hmm.
That information is probably out there because there's all sorts of like data book information about like all sorts of different techniques. But like, yeah, I didn't bother researching that one. So
okay,
I'm not gonna look it up on the wiki in the middle of a podcast because again, bad form.
No, bad form, awful. I already fucking grabbed an image that I didn't have on hand in the middle of a podcast, and that still feels gross.
Yeah, I mean that's like, you know, that's like easy to edit out when you're just like reading the shit from the wiki and you're like, oh, okay, so it says here, like nobody wants to listen to that shit.
Yeah, no, goddamn. But anyway, it doesn't fucking matter, and then the jutsu drops.
The jutsu drops. Shikamaru's like, okay, I'm gonna fucking die here, and Asuma drops out of the tree, and Asuma's an alright guy, you know. He doesn't think about ever, but like it's not really his fault, because Masashi Kishimoto doesn't think about ever either.
Mm-hmm.
He's here for his boy. He's here to be the dad that Shikamaru needs, you know?
Yeah.
Shikadai's not fucking dropping out of any trees to beat up 8 guys.
No, absolutely not.
Not Shikadai. Shikaku. Shikadai is his son. I fucked up.
Yeah. Well, Shikadai's also not doing that.
No, Shikadai is definitely not doing that.
Yeah, so Asuma shows up and beats all the guys up, and Asuma's pretty cool.
He's just pretty cool. I love his punch knives.
I love his punch knives. I love his cigarette.
Yeah. Maybe smoking does make you cool.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking that exact thing. For the next cover art for the podcast, I'm going to give you a cigarette.
Oh my god, that's scary. Tune in, everybody, in like a few years from now, and find out if that's true or not.
I don't know if it's gonna like be a few years from now.
It's not probably gonna be a few years from now, yeah, right? Because it's gonna be like maybe a year from now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like maybe even sooner than that, right? Like I don't know how often I'm gonna change it. Like definitely there is going to be a change in the jump from like Naruto to Naruto Shippuden, but like I don't think that's gonna be like the only time it is changed.
All right. So stay tuned about the shape of that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like
you want to see our Naruto OCs evolve.
Yeah. Right, because there are already some things that I'm like, I could change it up a little bit. I could do better.
Okay, well, you know, when you got the time, don't push yourself. But like you know,
yeah,
I'm not gonna like complain about you drawing your and my Naruto OC standing together coolly again.
Yeah, I mean, like I still need to finish the one for the bonus pod.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm busy. Like
you're busy.
Don't hold your breath.
Don't push yourself. We get to move on to the next episode? It seems like we're basically not talking about this one at all anymore. So
yeah. Okay. Episode 71, an unrivaled match. Hokage Battle Royale. Tamari sets some explosive wire traps for Sasuke, which he narrowly avoids. Orochimaru puts some weird knives in the 2 undead Hokage, and they start their attack. Hiruzen holds his own for a while, exchanging big, flashy, arena-altering jutsu that culminates in the first Hokage creating a bunch of huge trees on the roof that wrap up Hiruzen in their branches and roots.
Goddamn this episode, huh?
Goddamn, this episode looks so good!
It looks so good! Yeah, this is the exact same crew as the episode with Orochimaru and Sasuke in the forest. This is storyboarded, directed, and animation directed by Atsushi Wakabayashi. Key animators are Norio Matsumoto, Atsuka Inoue, and Atsushi Wakabayashi. So like the exact same crew as that time. I don't know if I'm gonna like go as in depth about like everybody on there last time, but like again, Atsushi Wakabayashi is like really positioning himself as like one of the like people most involved in like establishing like what Naruto action looks like. Norio Matsumoto is like just an absolute legend in his own right, and you know Atsuka Inoue doesn't like stand out as much as the rest of them, but I think she's definitely like. She is definitely like very capable as the glue that like holds these episodes together when it can't be like the big splashy action stuff that like Norio Matsumoto's bringing to the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this first half of the episode is like where I believe all of Norio Matsumoto's work is, and it is definitely like the bigger, more like flashy, more explosive like part of the action here. Like it is like the big ridiculous effects showcase, like starting with Sasuke in the forest, right, where he's like, you know, Tamari setting up the wire bombs, and there's just like a bunch of like ridiculously gorgeous explosions as Sasuke's just trying to like run away from them.
Yeah. The like the way that this scene is like pretty dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like these explosions go off and just like everything gets like blown out and like washed out in white. It looks so good.
It looks so fucking good. It's like, like obviously like the last Wakabayashi episode was like very very good. We talked a lot about it. I think like this one is like gesturing at a lot of like what he winds up incorporating into like his like personal style a lot more. Like it is much more directly indulgent of a lot of the things we see him like bring up again later in like his later episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also just like very fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think like interestingly, this is a bit of a tangent because I'm going to talk about an animator who didn't work on this episode.
Okay.
I am going to talk a little bit about Shingo Yamashita. Shingo Yamashita is like an animator who will like later do some work on Naruto. Like look forward to that. Like over in Shippuden, like however long it takes us to get there. He has like cited specifically like the episode with Sasuke and Orochimaru in the forest as being the thing that like inspired him to become an animator. But like watching this episode specifically, I feel like I am seeing like so many of the ideas that guy like returns to like over and over again in his career. Like just sort of like laid bare on the table in a way that was like kind of stunning to me. Like this feels like where a lot of that stuff comes from. And like part of that comes down to the fact that like Shingo Yamashita is an animator who like works under Norio Matsumoto, who like shows up on one of Atsushi Wakabayashi's big episodes later on. It's like there's like a very like clear lineage, like almost mentorship there. But like I really can feel like a lot of those ideas like kind of being like placed in front of him and like being the kind of things that like he draws from. And like the way that this episode often like has like these big like effects things like really dramatically like shift the lighting of the scene. And like I think that's one of those things that like really feels like an idea he will come back to and like hone a lot over his career and like take to like heights that I think aren't even here. Like he like really push it well past that, because I think he is like a especially as he moves away like later on in his career into being like a more of like a director and a compositing guy. He's like very invested with like presenting lighting and animation like this. But anyway, that is a bit of a tangent because again, Shingo Yamashita does not work on this episode. Shingo Yamashita will not be working on Naruto for quite some time, but like it was just constantly on my mind here.
Yeah. You identified like what's going on in this like earlier part with like the lighting and stuff as like a big like touchstone for his work later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And like there's other stuff like how the action is like framed and how like the effects are presented that like also feels like very of a piece of this stuff. But yeah, like maybe I'm reading too much into this, but like it really feels like like I watched this episode and then like I watched a bunch of like Shingo Yamashita OPs and I was like, yeah, maybe there's something there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But
anyway,
stuff's going on in this show.
Yeah, we gotta talk about the actual episode here, and there's plenty to talk about. So okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Right. So the various Anbu members who are just kind of like powerlessly trapped outside of the barrier that the Sound 4 put up are like watching us and like mostly just talking about how fucked up Orochimaru's like dead people summoning jutsu is. And, like out of the various forbidden jutsu we've seen, like I'll give this one to this one. This one is definitely the most like over the line in a lot of ways. This is probably fucked up to do.
Yeah.
You need like a living person to sacrifice to like it's this one's probably like not a good thing to do generally speaking. However, I do have to hand it to Orochimaru for saying some incredible shit, where like Hiruzen is like fucked up about seeing like the guy who trained him and like the first Hokage who like founded the village that like he believes in and like has fought for his entire life, like here to fight him, and then Orochimaru is just like, do you know the joy and sense of accomplishment of hurting the one who you once called sensei? I prepared this scenario so you might know that joy, which is like incredible, amazing sicko shit. I love him. I love him so much.
I love Orochimaru so much. I hope he wins.
That'd be great. So like the fight's about to begin, but like before we get into like the real big like explosive like effects-based casting big jutsu stuff, we get this like really great shot where like the first and second Hokage start like walking forward in this like really awkward shambling way. Like one of them is just like, rather than like walking around the coffin, it's just like really awkwardly just like sort of like lumbering over it and like stepping up on top of it and like just like walking past it with like no sense of like the actual like how to like
like the decorum of like walking over an obstacle.
Yeah, right. Like it is just kind of like just like basically like stumbling over it while staying upright. It is like very cool. It's like it's very creepy. It's a great shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just fucking off to the races, basically, right?
Yeah.
This this is a fight with pretty different aims than Wakabayashi's last fight, because like, with the Sasuke and Orochimaru episode, is very much like Sasuke just barely fucking holding on against the guy who like is very much outclassing him.
Mm-hmm.
And this time, like, the third Hokage is kind of on the back foot, but like, as long as only one guy is attacking him at a time, he can kind of like hold his own, right? Like we get some like hand-to-hand stuff where he's like kind of holding it together and like, man, just trying to like keep them at bay, so he's only fighting like one of them at a time. He shoots like a big like fire cloud at them, and we get more of that like lighting stuff I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And then we get like the big through line through all of like Wakabayashi's like big Naruto episodes that was like missing from the previous one, which is that there's just a bunch of water around suddenly, right? The second Hokage just like makes like a water wall and like expands that out and like completely like pools half of the barrier up with water.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so cool. Like all of Wakabayashi's big episodes going forward will have like a bunch of water in them, a bunch of like action that is like very much like there's very much constructed around like the water as part of the environment in a way that I think is like genuinely impressive and genuinely very cool, and I love it every time it happens. And this is like a first shot at that in a way that like I was really excited to see.
Yeah.
Right, like you got like there's this great bit where I think it's like the first Hokage who's just like sort of like skimming forward like while barely moving like at top speed at third Hokage, and the third Hokage is like doing these fire blasts while the first is just like blocking them like with his hands. It's fucking awesome.
It's fucking awesome.
It just like collides into him. The third Hokage like barely stops it, and then he like gets pulled under water. It's just fucking cool. There's so much cool shit in here. Like I feel like I'm so tempted just to like a blow by blow of all the fucking like insane cool shit that happens here, but like it's just great. The flow from like beat to beat of like this like big crazy like action sequence is just incredible, right? Like you've got you got Hiruzen's big mud wall that he stands on, and it gets like sliced into pieces by the big water jets and like crumbles into cubes, and all the trees are like grown out of it and like draining the water, and like the trees look so cool because there's like so much they get so much mileage out of like not even just like having the shapes of them like change as they grow, but like all of this very like intricate like changing of like the like sort of like lines shading them on their surface that like give it this like great sense of volume as like all of these trees grow. It's just like unbelievable to even think of like I couldn't conceptualize like how to like draw something like that and how to like track the movement of all of that stuff to like make it look as good and natural as it does. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like there's like that one really great like super involved cut with like all the background animation where like Hiruzen is like jumping around on the trees like as they are growing, and it is just like again this whole half of this episode is just like unbelievably impressive, like incredibly well conceptualized, like executed on a level that is like almost difficult to comprehend at times. I'm like truly thrilled by it. And then like ends with the third Hokage getting got and like getting all tangled up in the branches. Is there more you want to touch on with this stuff? Because like I would totally believe there is, right? There's just a lot of cool to talk about. If there's any like specific like cool bits you want to touch on.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. I'm ready to move on then.
Hiruzen summons Monkey King Enma and has him transform into the Adamantine Noi, a cool staff that flies around and changes size and stuff. Monkey King shit. It breaks through the tree limbs, holding Hiruzen in place, and Orochimaru gets out the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or Grass Sword, or Snake Sword. And so they have a cool weapons fight for a little bit, but the two undead Hokage interfere, and Hiruzen ends up on his back. He explodes the paper bombs he snuck on the undead Hokage, and sends Orochimaru flying to give himself a little space. But the undead Hokage immediately regenerate. Hiruzen resolves to use the Force secret jutsu, and Orochimaru tears off his face, revealing himself to have body swapped with a younger woman to extend his life. Sasuke catches up to the Sand siblings.
So this part of the episode starts off, Hiruzen is like sort of painstakingly like stretching his like hand forward to like dab a little bit of blood into like a tree branch in front of him to like summon Enma. It's like kind of fascinating when Enma shows up, because if Hiruzen is like Orochimaru's kind of like shitty judgmental dad, Enma like immediately shows up and starts acting like Hiruzen's judgmental and shitty dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why didn't you kill this guy already? I knew you were fucking weak. I knew you were worth shit. What's wrong with you? It's kind of unbelievable.
It's great. He's a fucking Monkey King. I'm so glad that there's a Monkey King.
It's cool when there's a Monkey King. Here's just kind of like, man, I get it. I don't really have time for this shit right now. Can you turn into a big stick, please?
Yeah, and so he does. And so then Orochimaru pulls out a sword, which, okay, it's different in the subs to what it is in the dubs. And so I looked it up on the wiki to see what they called it, and they called it something else. So I gave all of it, right? Because like clearly it is like supposed to be It is called like the grass sword, like the snake sword, or like I think it was like grass longsword in the dub, super awkwardly, and like it is very clearly aping the like special Japanese like imperial regalia sword, which it is like also named after. Is I assume that is just what it is called in the original Japanese, the Kusanagi no Tsurugi. But like I don't know, I'd have to. I don't know where I'd look that up. Who cares?
Okay. You're kind of the swords expert on this podcast, right?
Yeah, I'd think so.
It's like, there's something that I found kind of curious. Like, how would you describe the sword that Orochimaru has?
Well, that is actually what I wanted to get into a little bit because I noticed when I looked it up that it has a different design in the manga than the anime.
Yeah. This really caught my attention too.
The anime is more accurate to like what it is trying to be.
Okay, so that's what's going on there.
Yeah. Okay.
I like really wasn't sure if it was like trying to ape a specific thing because like in the manga it is like a much more like standard looking katana kind of design.
Yeah. So like Tsurugi is like a catch-all name for like a type of Japanese sword, which is like a straight double-edged sword. And it's also the word that Japanese speakers use when they're talking about like any straight double-edged sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it is a curved sword, they call it a fucking katana. If it is a straight sword, they call it tsurugi.
All right. Okay, that clears that up for me then.
Yeah, right. And so like there are a lot of like historically Japanese swords that are like that general form factor, including the one that is like the special one. Because it is so old that like I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be out of bronze, and it's it is like a very short, straight, stabby sword, allegedly. No one's allowed to see it.
Yeah, so when we get into like the weapons fight portion of the fight, like this is definitely the first half of the episode is like where like all of the Nori Matsumoto stuff is concentrated, and like this back half is like Wakabayashi and Inoue, and like they're both good, right? Like they don't have the same energy that the Matsumoto stuff has, but like I think all the action here is like really like strongly conceptualized still. Like I think it does a great job of like the third Hokage is using his big like size changing staff to like really control the like space super well, but like he always gets a little overwhelmed when the other two Hokages like jump in. Mm-hmm. Like he can hold Orochimaru at bay, but he can't like control the rest of it. I think it's all like pretty smartly boarded. I think it also makes the smart choice of avoiding this panel in the manga.
Oh no!
There's this panel in the manga where Hiruzen thrusts the Adamantium Noi forward, and like Orochimaru blocks it, and then Enma just sort of like pops his head out to jump scare Orochimaru for some reason, and it doesn't really do anything other than look kind of bad.
Boo!
I think probably the right call to like not figure out how you want to fit that in there because it's just kind of silly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'd get pretty scared.
I would be scared, but like
he should have instead like grown arms and then just fucking like twisted Orochimaru's neck.
Right. I mean that is a thing that happens later in this episode that doesn't happen in the manga.
Right.
So yeah, like a better use of the staff's ability to like turn into a monkey guy partially than the head jump scare.
Yeah.
But even though the third Hokage is like holding Orochimaru back, the other two Hokage just kind of like they eventually get him on his back, and so Orochimaru just like is like, okay, I did this, time to fucking gloat. He does the classic old razzle dazzle pose that we all know and love.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. I'm gonna put that in the episode description. I'm gonna put that in our channel where I like keep those things, so I remember to put that in the episode description. Because, sometimes you just have to pay homage to the classics. It's a great one.
Sometimes you just gotta stick your leg up.
Right. I love that he does this. I also love that, like, when he's, like, walking over to, like, he just, like, walks all the way up, like, directly over fucking, like, legs spread wide, and, like, reaches down and just picks him up by the scruff of his neck. He's like, you fucking loser. You fucking sucker. You're so shitty. And it was like, Hiruzen, you gotta fucking kill this guy. I'm gonna grow arms if you don't.
I love Orochimaru so much.
He's such a freak. You get the moment where like the staff like grows big arms to like try and strangle him, and Orochimaru's like, just kidding, I'm like a mud clone. It's fine actually. The Hokage kicks him in the neck and sends him flying back, and he stands back up, and then he like tears off his mask to reveal this body's real face. And man,
yeah,
like. Fundamentally, if Orochimaru is already the guy who is, like, stealing people's bodies to preserve his life, that's fine. That's the villain that he is. But it's kind of hard to shake the impression that part of what's supposed to be like weird and creepy about this is how like, how feminine like the body and the voice is here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it can't just be the reveal that Orochimaru is like, this is the first time we learn directly about Orochimaru is like stealing people's bodies to extend his life, right? Tsurukage's like kind of like, oh my god, did you complete that jutsu? But like again, that is enough of a beat on its own, and it is frustrating how I wouldn't even like really have a problem with like, okay, yeah, Orochimaru is just a character who doesn't put a lot of stock in that, and he'll just like take whatever body he can get that's like good for his plans. But again, we are supposed to be unsettled by the fact that like this is he has transgressed these boundaries of gender in a way that I am obviously not like unsettled by. I am more unsettled by the fact that like it is played as a horror beat that he has done this.
Yeah.
Right. Like obviously it's horrific that he like took somebody's body, right? Like that's not a good thing. But like the specifics of the way he tries to hide it are just not what I'm like. It is a problem that the show has with how it depicts Orochimaru because obviously we can have like a great time talking about how like Orochimaru is like a fun queer-coded villain. We can like make jokes about the Tsurugi being homophobic, but like fundamentally, like we aren't supposed to like that about Orochimaru, and like this is really a moment that kind of drives that home for me again. Even though I'm like this isn't like more horrific if it was just like I don't know like a younger guy's body under there.
Yeah, right. If he was just like a younger twink, it would like
it would be the same, but the show doesn't think it would be.
Right. Yeah. It's rough.
It's rough. I don't know if I have more to say about than that, right? Like that is just kind of like what it is, right? Like I think like maybe there'll be more to say about this later, but like in this scene right now, I think that's like pretty much like all I have to say on that point.
Yeah, I'll like same honestly.
Just kind of a downer note to end on like what is otherwise a very like exhilarating episode of Naruto to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, I wish the show wasn't horrible about gender.
Yeah, don't we all? In multiple ways.
Yep. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, you can check out our next episode, probably up tomorrow on our Patreon, patreon.com/Konoha Crush, all one word, Konoha Crush. Also, we should have, but by the time this is out on the main feed, our second bonus episode will be out. We're covering Ascendant of a Bookworm. And so I'm excited for that.
I think that's going to be a great show. I watched like most of that season that we're covering, and I'm like super excited to talk about it.
Yep. So you can check that out on our Patreon also for $5 a month. And for $20 a month, you get a special little shout out at the end of the podcast. So here we go. Thanks to our joining tier patrons, Maple and Izzy, future Chinchuriki of the Six-Tailed Beast. What is that? We don't know what that is yet. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know what this Jinchuriki shit is. What are you talking about? Tailed beasts?
What?
That's nothing to me. Huh?
Yeah, so thank you so much to Maple and Izzy. Again, if you want a shout out at the end of the podcast, like those two, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Konoha Crush, all one word, Konoha Crush, for $20 a month. Any pictures we talk about during the podcast can be found on our Twitter, twitter.com/Konoha Crush. I think that's how Twitter works. Our ad is Konoha Crush, all one word, Konoha Crush.
That's right.
Yep. I stream. I'm working on. Usually I work on like comic stuff, but like lately I've been doing stuff for Art Fight, which has been kind of fun. So if you want to check me out there, that is twitch.tv/Reziart, REZIART. Yeah, it's a good time. Come and check me out. Thanks for listening. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I mean, we should say what episodes we're watching next week.
Right. What episodes are we watching next week?
We are watching episodes 72, 73, and 74. Episode 72 will mean we are 1/10 of the way through the episodes of Naruto. Like, not counting the movies. That like adds to it a little bit, but like,
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's real progress. Also, we are nearing the conclusion of the Chunin exams and like Konoha Crush arc. If you would have any questions you would like to ask us about that, like you can send that to our email, which is I don't remember our email.
I'll fill in the correct email in post.
Okay.
KonohaCrushCast@gmail.com. All one word. Konoha Crush Cast.
That's great. I'm pretty sure this episode will go out before we record that one, and I'll be making that call on Twitter also. It is a good point to like respond to some listener questions if you have any.
Yeah.
Because I love to hear people have to say about the podcast. I love to like answer people's questions if there's like things they want to hear us talk about. You know.
Yeah.
If there's things you want us to address, I bet you'll like enjoy the podcast more if like we address them because you asked us about them. So like don't hesitate if you got something you want to ask.
Yeah, and we probably won't get a whole lot of askers, so if you want to ask multiple things this time, go ahead. But with that, hey, thanks for listening. And remember, there's no such thing as filler.